Right, good morning everybody. Welcome to the next SEMLA coaching seminar during this lockdown in the UK and various lockdowns all around the world in Europe. Today we're very lucky, we've got Henning Schmidt on the line from Luxembourg, who's going to give us his keynote all about playing games within mini games, things you do in training to mix things up, but I'll let Henning dive in with that in a moment. Usual format for these meetings, please go on mute while Henning's doing while other people are speaking. We'll be going to about maybe 20 past 10 with Henning's material. He's got lots of material. Then we're going to open up for some open Q&A. You can raise your hand using Teams to ask a question. Welcome to put your cameras on when you're asking questions so people can see you. And we will run till 10:45, there or thereabouts, and this is being recorded. So, without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen. You can see Henning, and share Henning's slides. And Henning, you can introduce yourself for those who don't know you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rob. So my name is Henning Schmidt. I have done a thing or two in Lacrosse, including some stuff in SEMLA, and moved to Luxembourg, which is between Belgium, Germany, and France, the Grand Duchy Luxembourg, about 4 years ago, but more than that. And I'm now here volunteering for the Luxembourg Lacrosse Federation as the club coach, and also as the general manager of the national team. And I have a role as a director of sports on the board of the federation for focusing on the development of our coaching personnel and volunteers, which we deploy in our schools. We've had some good success with that. We are currently having 4 schools in the capital itself, and then also in the biggest city in the south, Nèche-sur-Azette, where we have lacrosse as a curriculum activity. So between now and March, we have about 30 sessions scheduled, and we're hoping to grow the game once the constraints from COVID are gone. Schools are open here at the moment. They seem to be likely to remain open for the time being. And we are employing the curriculum that's being developed by World Lacrosse in conjunction with kind of what practically works for us in schools and also in competitions. So hence the name Games Within Games and Mini Competitions. So this is really a fancy way to say that we want things to be fun for the participants. One of the biggest jobs we have as coaches is to make sure that players are coming back. And if you have a chance to win, then kids and also grown-ups who are really just bigger kids have a more higher likelihood to return. Just as background, our annual turnover in terms of membership is about 50% because we have a highly transient community. So for us, recruitment is on our own field. We need to make sure that our players keep coming back because professionally people move away or go somewhere else or have children or whatever it is, and we need to make sure that stay engaged. Also credit to Maya Bartlett, who's the head coach of our men's national team. Coach Maya did help develop these slides, but is unfortunately unavailable this morning. Otherwise, she would contribute. But Coach Maya and I are closely developing this together, and she had a big component in there. And for the record, Maya is, to our knowledge, the first female head coach of a men's team. The only people that really notice that are those that haven't worked with her, because she's a highly efficient coach, and her philosophy and input are visible in here as well. So let's go to the next slide and dive right into it. Can't quite see it. So, coach to win, coach to compete. So one of the things that's really important is that, as we said earlier, players are in it to win it. They're not there to get bored. They want to run around and they have fun. And importantly, they're not at practice to listen to us talking. So when we're educating our volunteer coaches, one of the mantras we give them is from the first word to the first pass, you should get in 30 seconds. That's incredibly fast, and it's a little bit unrealistic, but it gives them a sense of urgency in terms of being highly economic with how much they say, and how complex they make the activity. This is really important because we want our players to move. We want our school classes to be about moving and about walking around in a fun environment. What we need to achieve is everything we have to do has to be easy to understand. Most kids know some sort of sports, whether it's basketball, football, hockey, or something. So if there was something round and something square, then they know that has to go into there. They will not know what we mean when we say dodge to the right alley, rocker back, and then make a double pass to the far side high guy shooter. That's not going to work. We need to make it easy to understand. It has to be fun. They have to be able to own it and to get a reward for some sort of risk that they're taking. It needs to be relevant for the actual gameplay. If all we train is running around cones and shooting goals, then we're really good at that, but we're not really good at lacrosse, which is then failing the original objective of coaching to win and coaching to compete. And this all has to be practically achievable. If I need an hour to set this up, this isn't going to work in schools. It's not going to work for us. And finally, but definitely not optional, this has to be safe. So no passing into crowds, no hard balls when we're not quite sure where they bounce, and so forth. And success for us is when we see development. So that means that we're seeing growth, so more players, and that we see them become better. So that's really important, that development is about improving the average level of play while growing the group. Yeah. If what we achieve is that we have 2 or 3 kids that really respond to what we do and the rest kind of trundle along, we're failing the group. If the group's not growing, it's likely shrinking and we're not noticing it. So keep that in mind whenever we talk about these things. So let's go to the next slide, please. If you cannot hear me or anything, then just kind of let me know. And otherwise, I assume the audio and video are fine. So the elements of competition that we use. So the most important thing is we want any one of these 3, preferably more. Defense, direction, and decision. Defense just means that there is someone or something that is in the way of what I want to achieve. This could be illustrated very easily. If we do a skeleton offense for, say, a triangle rotation of midfielders, that we run 3 against nobody through the midfield, and it just flows. It's just beautiful. Yeah, everyone moves. It's completely in sync. It's really, really nice. We put 1 defender in there. So logically, there is no reason for a 3-on-1 situation to be problematic in any way. But unless you're at a really high level, in particular with beginners, that 1 defender is really going to impact the delivery of that group. So defense doesn't have to be 1-on-1. It can be vastly outnumbered defense. It can be defense only in 1 spot. It can be competition against the time. It can be competition against a certain number of attempts. It can be against someone who's doing the same thing at the same time. It is just about creating that pressure that someone comes after you, that you hear feet tapping. Direction is another component to that. If we teach a dodger to kind of go to the cone, turn right, rocket dodge left, curl up the other way and do this, it's a lot like a PlayStation controller we're plugging into the back of the player and we're controlling them forward. They're going to be quite good at executing that. And sometimes this is necessary to build the relevant technical skill set. But in principle, we want players to take their own decisions in terms of where they go and when. And that's the next element, decision. If we have a 2-on-1, we want the player to either score or make the right pass. We can help the player take that decision, but ultimately we're just on the sideline and the player will have to do that. So we can create all these elements of competition. Whatever competition we run, it is ideally such that the competition is hard to predict who's going to win. Of course, there are some elements of competition where eventually some players pick up faster than others, but it's massively demotivating for players that are relatively worse, but still growing and developing as individuals, if they go into a one-on-one situation and that's it. If you're coaching at Hillcroft, you will have the situation that you have a third-team player that's on the field for the first time in 8 weeks, and in front of him is a player that's about to go to the World Championship, and is not about to go easy on him because this is the 90 minutes he gets a week, and every rep counts. So we can do competition in many ways. So it could be how many shots in how many seconds, faster than someone else, Or a real local favorite here is X lives till out. So in the schoolwork we have a goalie that really, really badly wants to be a goalie. So we do an ice hockey shootout. It's exactly that. Run up, fake, shoot. The coaches and the players take part, and you miss 3 times, you're out. The goalie's going nuts, loves it, and the kids love it. And it's the massive, biggest carrot we can have for these kids. 101 up. Good thing is the kids know to respect the keeper. They try and hit the white. They make all the right moves. We're teaching a lot of technique without even saying the word of how this goes. We're just asking them how they feel that they can move themselves better. Let's go to the next slide. So a lot of this is about you guys kind of taking away how can we create this in a way that works for us, because everyone has different numbers, different levels, different facilities, different objectives, and all of them are relevant and all of them are correct. But the way to structure this is you can go through all the things you want to teach your players and put them into any one of these 4 categories. So technical skill development, that's the sort of things like throwing a pass, making a dodge, picking up a ball, setting a pick, anything that is a skill in its own right. And with the tactical skill development, that's it. The deployment of that skill within a field relevant situation. So I've learned how to set a pick. The tactical knowledge is now the where and the when, and then how to react from that. So it's a different kind of skill set, and both of them are relevant, and they need to mesh for us to get somewhere. None of that works if we don't have the physical development. So that's speed, strength, stamina, agility, flexibility, and just being in a position to run around someone without being completely gassed after 30 seconds. And then finally, of the psychosocial development, so coping with with pressure and stress. So the ability to just be in a competitive situation, take on the challenge, and just work on the assumption that this will work. And if it doesn't, I know what I need to fix. So any of these you can combine, and you can then go from there and build your own set of activities out of that. So say you want to work on pick and roll, as the example, and on physical development, say speed. So you could do something where the 2 teams have to run 20 yards either way, come back, and then go into the 2v2 with a pick and roll. So they work on recovery and all that, and it's just one extra component you latch on top of that. When we run coaching qualifications together with the European Lacrosse Federation and Anna Pedersen, the coaching coordinator, we have the participants write down all the different skills, and then we build practice plans on a genuinely random combination of 2 or 3 of these components, and it's always a really interesting one. So you can constrain by time, by attempts, by space, by method. If you're tight for time and on the field, scheduling by time is always a nice way to do it. It's also a good chance for players to have a benchmark. How many times can I shoot at the goal this week, and how many times in 4 weeks? How accurate am I, and so forth. We can have these sort of opposition in various degrees, or what we label here last player standing. It's a number of lives on a one-on-one. Try and incorporate in whatever you do that your player has to face the defense, whether actual or in your mind. So time, something like that. That there is a degree of direction and there is a degree of decision. All of these need to help you kind of give your players more of an experience to kind of work through this. And it allows them to just learn that the person that matters on the field is themselves. Yeah? So if you go to the next slide. So the proof's in the pudding. And this is a slide from, this is a screen grab from the YouTube series Train Ugly. It's a really good video to watch, and it compares the difference between random and blocked practice. So the random practice is all about the number of times. So the chart shows how many seconds you need to complete an activity, and then at the far right is how many seconds you need in a competitive situation to do that. So you can see that a randomized practice takes a lot of time to start. This is for starting on a whistle. So it's a randomized practice starts slower and remains slower than the block practice throughout. So in a lacrosse environment, this is a, say, This is the difference between putting 10 players in the middle of a circle and telling them to throw as many passes as they can within 25 seconds or whatever your time limit is, vis-a-vis monkey in the middle, 2 balls on the outside, run a figure 8 around cones. So the latter is neatly understood. I run around, I get the ball, I throw it back, I go the other way, I throw it back, maybe I change my hands, I do something, I follow a fixed recipe. And I can understand that really well, assuming I've been explained. I've received a good and effective, short, timely explanation, and then I just get better and better and better at that. But the only thing that I've trained when I do, say, this example of the monkey in the middle is I've now become quite good at running in a figure 8 on a field. I'm not good at throwing a pass in the game. And that's what we see then when it comes to competitive situation on the right-hand side. The block practice participants actually underperformed, relatively speaking, in the competitive situation vis-a-vis the players that had the random activity. Also, don't forget that random activity is a lot more about the coach being the facilitator of the situation rather than the teacher of every minute detail. You can have a lot of faith in your players to figure out what they do. We had one guy starting lacrosse with us, really athletic guy, 26 years old, never played lacrosse in his life before, but he played tennis and hockey. And we asked him to run from GLE in a semicircle up and shoot a goal. That was all we asked him to do. We didn't tell him what hand to use, nothing like that. And his natural choice was to do a backhand throw. Surprisingly, he can actually hit the net. So we told him that there are different ways to do that, but if he was comfortable using that, then that was fine for us. Ultimately, at our level, the only thing that matters is that the results are there for the player to retain in our sport and to come back and preferably bring all their friends. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So one other thing that's really important in this is constraints versus rules. So rules are about, well, the easiest facsimile is to say, imagine you have a PlayStation controller, you can plug it into the back of the head of the matrix dial of your player. Then you can use the PlayStation controller if you say 2 steps left, 3 steps right, change hands, stick up and out, and fire. You will get a nice move out of that. It's quite good. So that's the sort of rules we can give someone. I need you to go hit that cone, go there, do this, go there, do that, shoot the goal. And there is a time and a place for this sort of instruction. It's just about whether maybe there is a different way to do that. Because I can just say, I need you to make sure that your stick is in both hands at least once before you go. So how you get there, I don't really care. Just make sure that you do have it once here or once there. The player is going to explore this completely differently, and he's going to figure out exactly what works and what doesn't for him or her. If you then see that the player is missing an obvious chance for improvement, that's for you as a coach to step in at an opportune moment, say when they're at the back of the queue, and show them that I see that you're doing this, and that's really a good way to do that, but how about you change it a little bit up and do that before you do this? And that way you can have really positive, constructive engagement with the player. The player never experiences that they've broken a rule. They're just learning, playing, and then competing in their environment. So constraints is a bit of a hard thing to do. If you grew up in a coaching environment like I did, where everything was based on a very set way of doing things, but it really works. We used this weekend at our Lax Academy. We had 3 kids because of COVID, it's quite low numbers. We had 2 goals left and right on a basketball court, and we had a whiteboard in the middle. And we told them that they had to pick up the ball out of the net, go over there, make at least 3 passes, and then score a goal. It took them about 30 minutes to figure out, but they figured out on their own how this would work. They eventually got to the point where one of them said, I need both of you to be on my left and my right, so I have a pass around the whiteboard. Isn't that beautiful to hear? And then they would go as far as saying, I need you to either run all the way through so I can pass to you again for a given goal, or I need you to kind of swap places. So they did all sorts of tactical decisions. They used the funniest words. Honestly, it was beautiful to listen to because they used football terminology. But the result was exactly what we wanted it to be. And they ran it up and down and up and down. And it was easy for us to coach because we just changed the way where the whiteboard stood on the field. And we changed the constraint, and they creatively worked with that the whole time. So if you have a way to try this out, whether you work with rules or with constraints, give it a go. It's really quite revealing. My favorite example is every pass is facing forward. So that means that the only thing that I say is when you make a pass, make your sternum point where you pass. So all of a sudden this sideways pass cross body doesn't quite happen anymore, and you're forcing your kids to actually engage and move into the direction of where they want to go. Passing percentage for us improved substantially just over that one constraint. So let's go to the next slide. About 6 minutes left. So practice plans are really at the core of this, but one of the things that Coach Maya is really big on is she allocates in the practice planning, if you have the right kind of individuals working with and for you, to take charge of certain things. That doesn't have to be just the warm-up. You can have a goalie run the clearing things and others, but it is one of your most important parts as a coach is to build your successor. A lot of us here are the ones holding the torch, and we've done this for a long time, and we've enjoyed every second of it. But the reality is that at some point, that will come to an end. Whether it is that you move away, whether it is that you've just had enough, whether it could be that you're too old, it could be anything. Everything that we do is for nothing if there isn't someone to do it for us when we're not there. And that's so important. I've seen this once in Germany fall apart, and I promise you it's a horrible time to see that from afar. So make sure that you build a core leadership group that actually gets the education and that actually learns how to do these kinds of things. Early communication and transparency, this is a big thing for Coach Maya about sharing the practice plan. I would temper that with a question of whether a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old needs to see the practice plan. But you can do things like, hey guys, tomorrow we're going to start with insert name of your favorite activity. Yeah, so if you have kids struggling to be on time, start with their favorite game right at the beginning of it and tell them that you will do that. Pretty sure you're going to see better attendance. Being open to feedback, we have a standing Google link that has only 2 fields. One thing, you write down in however many words you want what you didn't like, or what you liked. Where it's an open question. What did you or did you not like? And then there's a second box that says, what would you do differently and how? So we're giving the players to an opportunity, in particular because here the culture is often a little bit different and people are a bit more inside. We give them a chance to express their opinion in a way that's completely anonymous. And on the form it says, don't write your name. We kind of know who it is half the time, but we really don't. And we got some really good stuff from that. Being flexible, we've all been there. You just try an activity and it just doesn't work. You need to have more time for that. For beginning coaches, we advise them to have 150% of the time schedule prepared, so that if you know that you're going to work for an hour, have 90 minutes worth of stuff ready just in case something doesn't work, that you can kill it and go somewhere. Coach Maya makes a point of checking off with players whether the checklist for success has been achieved. Her team is realistically fighting in position to win a national German championship. So for them, it's a lot about hitting those little milestones on the way. That can be something different for us at development level. For us, one of the checklist of success items is, did you have fun? Well, we're telling the kids and the players, the grown-ups as well, they get the same questions. If you didn't have fun, tell us why. What did you not like? Because if it's not fun, they're not coming back, and then we don't have lacrosse. And then competition, everything should be a competition. In her mind, that's a bit of a North American take. We use a lot of competition, but not all the time. We use it when we feel it's appropriate or when the kids are asking for it. Sometimes we want to do a warm-up and they just want to go straight to play. Okay, I think I have a few minutes left. Let's go to the next slide. So that's dodging for survival. So that's one that we've recently built. If you have a number of cages, you can do all of these. So both of you are at the top of the crease. The defender has to run once around the crease or to a cone. Here we use running around the crease. It works. And there is a ball at the end line, so the attacker has to run to the ball, pick it up, and then it's a one-on-one dodge. It's that simple. If I have to explain this to you, I can say, Rob, you're the defender. You run around the circle, then you go get him. Okay? Okay. And Chris is the attacker. I'm like, you go get that ball, and then you go score. Okay? Okay. That's all I need to know. I need to go get that ball, and I'm going to go score. Or I run around, and then I don't let him score. That's all that we're talking about. But it forces our players. Our dodger all of a sudden has to decide, which way do I go? Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I go fast? Do I go slow? It's like, I can't tell you. Like, I don't know what your favorite dodge is. Maybe you don't know. Try something out. We have the defense for the obvious reason that there is a defender. And crucially, we have the knowledge that there will be a defender. I will get a check. There is no, like, kind of, I can see him coming or anything. If I'm back turned him, if I'm too slow, I need to push hard. And when I pick up the ball, I'm out of breath. I've done the 10, 15-yard sprint, depending on where you put the goal. You can then make it points for something. So if our players hit the pipe, they normally get double to triple the points for a goal because we want them to shoot on the frame. And then you can figure out how you go about it. But you can, and they're the safety and carry, but you could do this in any combination. You can make this so you go once, then you stay up high and you wait for the dodge to come to you. It becomes a 2-on-2. You can leave another group of kids there. If you have several goals, you can move the winner, so the scorer, in one direction, and the loser, so if you got scored on, the other way. However you want to do it. You can make it that if you haven't scored in 3 dodges, you're not dodging anymore. You go to the next activity. It's however you want it to do. But it's fast to set up, it's easy to do, doesn't require a whole lot of stuff, and you don't really need a goal. Like if you're in a school environment, you can take a mini trampoline, a box, a set of cones, whatever you want it to be. Okay, one more and then we're done. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is a local favorite, boom. So you have the lines of players facing the goal. They're in 2 teams, red and blue. And the constraint is that offense are not allowed to cross the midfield line. So it's a 2v2 above GLE in one quadrant on the field. So what we developed this and used this to be able to play with the rookies and have the rookies on one part of the field. And if we really need a goal, we put 2 of our better guys to the other side and we play a third of a pair's offense. It's really quite simple. The engaging bit is that you tell the teams that if they catch the offense or defense cheating and stepping on the other side, they have to shout boom because it's a minefield and obviously they're going to get blown up. So everyone's engaged, everyone's watching, you can make it real quick, and then you can go from there. The boom with finish is just that if we did score, so say Chris managed to land a goal, then Chris gets to stay for the next rep in the other half on the middle. He can't really move. He gets like a place, he can choose a place and has to stay there, but there is an offload for him. The defense is always complaining about that, and they're always saying that this wouldn't be fair because then it's an easy pass. And our response is, well, then don't let them, which is exactly what we want them to learn, is that it's for them to decide what offense does and doesn't do. You can do this in parallel, so you can do it on the left and on the right. You can start it from the goalie, so the goalie throws the ball to wherever he likes, so they have an element of decision and direction. You could do this at the backhand of the goals as well. Doesn't really matter, but it's a very simple setup. It's 2v2 here. So you have to stay in these squares. You can put some cones down. Eventually they know where the lines are. And you can run it real fast. So you get a lot of reps out of it. You work on pick and roll. You work on finishing close. You work on all these different things. Defense works on their approaches. The opportunities are endless, and then go straight from there. Okay, one more slide, and then we're done. And that's the other absolute favorite that every kid wants to play every time we do it. Japanese Shark Tank. So it's 2 groups running around the crease in one in one direction and one in the other. You roll the ball out. Whoever wins it gets to attack. With us, if you win the ground ball, you get to stay on for 1 more rep. Our only problem here is that that players become too physical, like to the point where they're prepared to foul someone if it means they stay on and win the ground ball, which is exactly the sort of toughness and attitude we want to teach our players. But we don't want to teach them to commit fouls because fouls are a tactical disadvantage. So we need to step in a little bit, but we never have to motivate anyone for this activity. This is real fun after a sprinting exercise or something, because then you see, once the legs are tired, who really wants the ball. Yeah, and I think I would leave it at this. There is more slides. I can do more slides if you like, but I want to make sure that we have ample time for discussion. So are we okay for that, Rob, or do you want me to keep going?
We will pause there because there's so much good content you've shared already, Henning. We will open up to anyone on the floor for any questions of what we've seen so far, anything they want to be clarified, anything really, and then we have got all the other material we can then carry on through the rest of your presentation. But we'll first just open up. First of all, very much thank you for what you've shared so far, and open to the floor. Anyone got any questions for Henning? No? Right, good. I have one question, just on the 2v2 boom to finish, just so I understand how that was working. I'm looking at the slides to my left. So it's 2v2 left and right. So the 2v2 on the left side will go, and that will result in either a defensive win or a goal.
Yeah.
And then the 2v2 on the right-hand side go.
Yeah. However you want.
Yeah.
You can do left and right if you have the numbers. You can make it. You can switch it up in any way you want. It's all we're doing is we're putting a constraint on space. Yeah. So if you have a high-level box level skilled team there that is actually able to play in small quarters, then you can give them less space. Or if you have players where you just want to practice that they don't piss the ball away. Sorry for my expression. Then you can tell them that they're only allowed to score after 45 seconds.
Right.
That's hysterical, because then defense knows that they have a license to hunt for 45 seconds.
The question is, when you mentioned about if someone then scores, that extra bit, when someone scores that they stay on, but you say that stay on and go to the other side. Can you explain again?
So they would be in a position, so here in the chart, there is an extra P on the right-hand quadrant. So that they would have won that round. That guy would have been the scorer. And you don't rotate out. You stay on. But you only show your stick, and you're in a time and space shot position. So you don't get to move around a whole lot. You just stay. So normally I just put a cone down and say that's the extra scorer cone. And it's like the middle cone are all whites, and there's one red cone there. And then I'm like, you can be on the red cone, and you can offer a shot. And if you have it, you can take it. And if not, no.
Oh, so that's a 3-on-2.
That becomes a 3-on-2 with a third guy being static. So that third guy being static is a simulation of where a slide would come from.
Got you. Excellent. We've got a couple of questions coming in. Chris White was the first one to raise your hand. Chris.
Oh, hi. Thanks for that, Henning. It's more of a comment than a question so much. And I think this is my philosophy. I think is very closely matched to what yours is and anything we do. If they only come to our training for an hour and a half, then they've got to enjoy it, and they've got to keep busy. The more times we can pass and catch, the better. But it doesn't really matter whether it's exactly the right technique at first. So it annoys me when you see people who've played with an American or someone else who's played with an American, and they're like, right, we're going to do a line drill, and it's got to be righty to right on the outside, and then lefty to left. It doesn't matter. Just pass and catch, because first of all, if you can't pass and catch, you can't do anything. And then the other part of it, which is very closely linked to what you said, really, is that a lot of kids, when I say kids, I mean university students, sorry, a lot of university students or people who join our game, or even your 26-year-old guy, they haven't played lacrosse before, and they may not have played a lot of other team invasion games, so they may not understand the basics of what is taught in primary schools for football or rugby.
Yes.
To understand the difference of in a 3-on-2, if there's someone who's not marked and you are marked, chuck it to the bloke who's not marked. They don't. A lot of adults don't understand that, and that's like primary curriculum PE. So we're having to both teach them primary curriculum PE that they didn't listen to or weren't taught by good PE teaching in football, hockey, rugby or anything, and how to catch and throw when they've not necessarily been particularly sporty people. And I think so. I think everything you've done there has to be the start. In my point, you've got to get them enjoying it, running around, exploring it, a bit like you would do with primary school PE, and encouraging, and then picking people out one at a time and saying, oh, you can improve this and a bit of that, this and that. So I really liked your presentation. Thanks very much for that, Henning.
Oh, thank you.
Your English is amazing as well, and I've always thought that.
Thank you.
Chris Webborn says his German's just as good.
Jules has got your hand up. Jump in.
Yeah, I actually have two questions. I don't know if you want me to offload both of them at the same time or let somebody else go first.
Fire them in.
So the first one is back to that 2-on-2 from each side. So I get the concept of, the extra guy who is just a space and time shooter. But what happens after we successfully give the guy a ball? So, that time and room shooter gets the ball, he shoots again. Does he stay again? Because,
No.
Technically...
No, it's one extra. I mean...
Okay. And then
if you want to, but that's for you to decide. If you wanted to make it really remote, if you want your offense to be the sort of risk and reward approach that you'd rather shoot hard than not, and that you want to score, and that scoring has to be that thing that stays, you can make it that, hey, if you score the first one, you stay on. If you keep scoring, you stay on. This is exactly the sort of thing where your attacker would experience getting hot. Sometimes you have that attacker that after 3 clean, easy goals, the fourth one is impossible, but it's still there. So it's a bit for you to decide what you want to send. It's also, the other question is this really a problem? So if you have little Johnny who just runs around with a 50 cal in his arm, and it's just every time, and he knows how to space and he knows how to move, you can give him a constraint like, I love how you score. I need you to shoot from up and out, crossing panes, far side corner. So if you're standing there, it needs to go all the way down there. Can you do that? So you give him an extra challenge. Everything is the same. You don't have to change anything. But Johnny Rocket over there gets an extra activity. You also Johnny Rocket gets this upgrade moment in a video game. Like, that's the thing that kids understand, the upgrade. If you talk to them in video game and say, hey, do you play Call of Duty? Yeah, I do. Would you like to upgrade your gun? Yeah, I would. Okay, so I've got a scope for you. It's 5 times full. But the thing, you know how it works? It's out there. You'd be surprised how the kids are like, oh, it's like a sniper scope. They don't want to know the physics. They don't care. They just want to know what it does. I hope that helps. What's your second question?
The second question is a bit specific to a bit specific to my situation where I'm coaching the university team, and I think a lot of us here guys are also SEMLA coaches, and you have a team where you pretty much have players for a bit longer. So I think creating that competitive spirit within the team is quite easy. And how do you, because you mentioned you guys teach a lot of primary schools, and scenarios where you only have that player for 2 years, 3 years, and then he's gone. There's nothing else you can do. And how do you create that competitive spirit from the very, very beginning, from stepping into a new environment yourself as a coach, but also stepping into an environment that changes every 4 years or 3 years or whatever?
Well, so time is always limited. So I would never worry about how long you have these guys. Like, you either have them for a decade or a week. You don't know. Like, they might be gone next week. So you can discard that concern of how long they're there for. Like, even in university, you might be unlucky that they got a kick-ass degree and now they get a PhD elsewhere when they were supposed to be doing a master's for you. You never know. So don't worry about things you cannot control. That's a big thing in the World Lacrosse curriculum. Focus on stuff you can control. So the second thing is about how to create a competitive spirit is we need to show a clean relationship between risk and reward. And you need to figure out what that works. So with a German team, making them do push-ups for being lost is entirely and completely accepted. It's a perfectly good and fair punishment for being lost. And you would find yourself in a position where you're too nice that your team might turn around and say, Coach, it's very nice, you're so positive, but that's bullshit because we were awful. Yeah? And then you just kind of have this conversation with a team that's a lot more direct. So you need to tailor it to your team. If you're running with a bunch of kids, I would advise to, what we do is we say, who wants to score a goal? And then there's a couple of kids like, yeah, me. And then you just roll as many balls as you have out there and let them shoot. Like I think a year or two ago, Chris used what we call got one, need one, and shared a video of that. And it absolutely looked like Finding Nemo seagulls. but it still works. We're still using it. It's about creating the sort of environment that they enjoy. And then once they enjoy it, you can make it for the right kind of reward. If you stick to the video game analogy, if you play something like Dark Souls, which is an incredibly tough game that deliberately doesn't give you a manual, then for me, I'm not playing that. I play that for an hour and I'm like, can't be bothered. I don't have time for that. If you're a hardcore gamer and you don't want instruction, that's great. So you need to figure out what is the right level of competition for your team. And every group's different, and it's often different on the day. So there is some kind of gauges you can use, like the got one, need one, or others, where you just see how much they're running around today, how motivated are they. And then you can have all sorts of mini competitions. You can start with 4 time. So you do this passing around, and you say, all right, that was great 2 minutes. How many passes did you have? How many did you have, Chris? Did you have 5 or 10? 15. Well done. And how many did you have? And then you can try again. Say, all right, let's go. Everyone does 30 passes. Ready, steady, go. And then there is target. There is a mini competition, but I'm not in competition with anyone else. I'm just with myself. So you would follow this logic of explore, play, compete. So explore is a really important phase in learning. It's where I'm new to the sport and I'm the and I figure out how this works. It's where you can do the most technical work. Then it's play. It's a whole like, everyone get 25 points. Then it's compete. Like if you don't have 10 points, you're going to do a push-up. So you can chart it up through that structure of explore, play, compete. I hope that helps.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Great questions there. I've got a question, which I know I posed to you via message a couple of days ago, Henning, about where I coach within the Milton Keynes Club. We have mixed sessions, both genders, boys and girls, but there's only one coach, me, and so we warm up together, do non-contact stuff together, the usual things, and then we kind of split up each end, 2 goals. But then what we struggle with is when we want to play kind of mini games, competitive stuff, but as a group, having that thing where we're always it's difficult to flick between contact, non-contact. Is this a girls v boys? Is it a girls defending, boys attacking? Therefore, the boys have got to be careful what they're doing, vice versa. So trying to come up with competitive things we can do in a mixed scenario where the boys are getting something out of it because there's still elements of men's. It's safe, and that's something I've struggled with. Has anyone, yourself, Chris, all the other people who work with both boys and girls, of competitive drills that are safe and mixed, but give both genders the things they're looking to see?
Let Chris go first.
Well, where possible, I'd keep them separate. But the drill with the line down the middle from the goal, we found has worked quite well when you can do a 3-on-2 on one half that's a men's rules and a 3-on-2 on the other half that's women's rules, or in Henning set up the 2 and 2v2, 2v2, so you can have something you're in control of as the coach. Men's going on one half, women's going on the other half. The principles are the same, but the rules within which they can play are different. That's worked quite well. But I'm having the same challenge, and I think that's where Henning talking about leadership groups within your group are really essential.
Yeah, Dave, hello. So you put your hand up. Can you throw some experience?
Yeah, just on that point with mixed groups, I'm a big fan of the pickup games with a tennis ball, no padding, no helmets, and mini goals, where it's a non-contact. And even to the point where it's a non-power game. So even though you could shoot it as hard as you want, you're not allowed to. And there's restrictions. It's not about running fast or running over someone. It's a finesse and a skill game. So it's almost like box lacrosse, but without the contact. The advantages, especially, say, in Henning's situation or any new developing area, is that there's no restrictions. It can be junior boys, junior girls, senior boys, senior girls. because there's not the contact. It's a skill finesse game, where it's much more of a passing game, setting picks, cutting, and using deception rather than it's, well, I'm the biggest kid, I can run through you or shoot it through you or run over you. Another option for the specific with your situation, I mean, are you familiar with korfball? And they break it down where men mark men and women mark women. So in effect, within that, you're putting them all together in a group. It's actually two separate games going on at the same time, because you have men defending men or boys defending boys and girls playing by their rules. But one of the things I wanted to ask Henning at the start, when he was saying about the practices and the creating the environment, is that with full equipment or is that just with a tennis ball and a stick?
So the schools is sticks and these kind of rubbery balls that are some like kind of soft balls. The pathway they go is spread. So the first 6 weeks is only stick and ball, and they basically play stick ball. So it's a run hard and fast. And then when we manage to get the school a bit more comfortable, we give them equipment. And then now we're gearing up towards establishing and we've been funded to do that by World Lacrosse, to do a 6v6 high school league. So we have equipment in 4 schools, and they're going to have 3 6v6 game days where they actually play for points and titles and a trophy. But you start without the stick, without the pads, and then you go with air. And we find that to be very helpful for the growth trajectory, because the players learn that you can't play men's lacrosse without getting a scratch if you know where to be and how to make a pass. Like, it's a physical sport, but just like rugby doesn't force you to try to lie in the mud the whole time. You can play rugby and be squeaky clean if you're fast enough and you have the spacing. It's the same with lacrosse. You don't have to get beaten up in an attack if you know how to move and the ball isn't in your stick a lot of time. So there are those components. The thing for me with how do I work with these groups is I'd ask, are you actually playing mixed lacrosse with these groups? Do they go compete in mixed? If the answer is no, then I wouldn't worry too much about that, and I would worry more about gearing the game, using space and time to say, like Chris outlined, you can do a 2v2, half and half. You can show the boys what they need to work on. You can get some local leadership by the guys that actually know how to run that to the point where a practice is fun and entertaining when you're not there. One of our biggest constraints for growth is we had in the first 2 years I was here, if I couldn't make a practice and I would mark it down, attendance would drop by 75%. And I was furious, and I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you guys that all of a sudden practice is optional just because my old rear end isn't running around? I'm not doing anything. You don't need me to move. And they're like, oh, it's not fun. And that we had to take serious. That we have to take serious and ask, why is it not fun? And they're like, oh, it doesn't have structure. We don't know what to do. And it's this and it's that. So now we're finally at the point where we've trained up our players to run practices. And just this weekend, I got a message after we ran our coaching course last week by our player coach. And he was like, the course really helped with being confident in running the practice. And it was so much fun to see the guys get better. That's when you've broken the mold, when someone's come out of this and gone into something else. And that's something that I would always say with this is, if the girls team says we want to be good at girls, the boys team says we want to be good at boys lacrosse. There is some stuff you can do together that's really good. Fitness challenges, great. Who wants to be slower than a girl? Nobody. They're going to run so hard. But the girls are the same. Who wants to be faster than at least one boy? Immediately, you're there. It's there. You can do stick work, warm-up, other things. For a laugh, you can give the girls the boy sticks and vice versa, just to see how it shakes out, and see how it goes, as long as it kind of falls into this framework of coach to compete, coach to win. If MK Lax wants to win women's and boys lacrosse, then I would go with what Chris said. Yeah, share what you can, but keep it safe and focus back to where you are in terms of your objectives. That's why the checklist is so important.
Chris Webber, your hand's up.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to go back to that comment on how you deal with boys at training, girls at training. I've never really had that issue. My thing is numbers. So what I've had to learn, and you can adapt this to the guys and girls at training, is as a coach, you can allow your players to run a drill. You as a coach does not need to run the drill. You don't have to make sure that you have the 3 lines all set up, that the right person leaves, say you're doing a 2-on-1 ground ball drill, that the right person calls man, the right person calls ball. You don't have to micromanage all of that. You could simply say, we are going to run a 2v1 ground ball drill, one person on their own, go. And then the players can actually run the drill, and you can give the coaching points. You didn't pick that up because your hand wasn't low enough. You didn't get that because you slipped as you went to go get the ground ball. You actually played really good defense then, and that's when you can get the coaching. And that's, having that split field means you can do that as well as a coach. And just let the girls and the guys run the drill. If it's a brand new drill, you might need to take a little bit of time just to explain it, but as soon as they get back and they know things, right, we're doing 2-on-2s on one side of the goal. Oh, I remember that. Okay, John, you go stand there, I'll stand here, and let's get going. And then you're able to coach. You're able to look at both groups, be able to give feedback at the right times, and not have to worry about the guys and girls bumping into each other because the drill is running and you can coach.
Yeah, there's a big part about facilitation and about motivation. If you look at it, you have 60 minutes with your team. What is the best use of your time? It really often isn't about worrying about how this happens and how that happens, because that's stuff that people can do for you if you have geared them up to that situation. Yeah, that's obviously contingent on that. But if you have a bunch of grown-ups, particularly the annoying I used to play international situation that we have in Germany a lot. Yeah, Chris is laughing now, but you get that a lot, that someone says, me, I played last Stone Age, I played for Germany, so why should I listen to you? That's literally the attitude you're getting. And the only way around that worked for me is, hey, Joe, I think it's awesome you played international. Can we have a conversation about how to run the boom 2v2 drill? Did you look at the chart? Oh, you did. Great. So can you run that for me in 15 minutes? We're going to do some stick work, and then need you to run with half of the men's team over there. Can you do that? And in my experience, Johnny Stone Age becomes from a nuisance factor to a motivator because he wants to be in charge. He wants to lead us. He wants players to get better. It comes from a good spot, that intention. And you don't have this conversation. So that's all about facilitation. Then motivation is, I always underestimated how much players actually listen to you saying things. But the World Lacrosse coaching curriculum says quite clearly that on balance, you need to kind of emit 5 positive things for every 1 corrective thing for players to enjoy themselves, because the brain chemistry is, if I'm like, Weber, don't drink right now. Yeah? Okay. So immediately the bottle goes down, and he remembers that. To get him back to a more fun level, if we don't know each other, we need to say kind of 5 nice things throughout. So it doesn't mean I have to sit around there and kind of take points. I've seen that in one assessment where a coach very fastidiously noted down how many positive things he said. But it's about how, when you arrive, when you're in practice, and I'm like, oh, Joe, you're here. Awesome, man. Great to see you, buddy. Could be anywhere in front of the PlayStation, but here you are in the ring. Outstanding. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I know it's cold. Yeah, I know. But just make it a fun environment from the first second to the last second. So the big thing is not only being a coach, but also being a bit of a clown and making it fun for everyone. Yeah? So that's really important. If it becomes a place where, like, we have kids that come to practice not because they like lacrosse, but because they like their friends, because it's fun, because they're tired, because the parents know it's 500 grams of pasta and 15 minutes until kiddo is knocked out on the floor. It's all of these reasons why this works. So the product that you're making is about facilitation, communication, all these other things. So write down one of the things that, if you have that situation, like, I'm not quite sure how to do this, one thing that's a good start is to write a job brief of what you're supposed to do. And start with verbs, like the activities that you do, like talk, communicate, organize, take stats. Write down everything that you do. And that'll give you an idea what you actually need to achieve, at least in our experience. Our guys go into schools to teach lacrosse, and they're like, what do you want me to do? And we're like, make it fun. Make sure that in week 1 they learn how to throw and catch. Week 2, pick up a ball. Odds on, they learned that in week 1 by dropping the ball the whole time. And then week 3, learn how to shoot, which, still they're going to pick up the ball a lot. And then from week 4, it's all games. We have a game called Bunker, where your partner passing, no opposition to the goal. For every pass back and forth, I get a point. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's different versions of the game. So when they're a bit older, you have to score a goal to get the points. And we give them a minimum distance. So they can shoot from anywhere, but they learn very quickly that shooting from right in front of the goal is much better than from a narrow angle. But they go like 1, 2, 3, shoot, miss. 3 points gone. Damn it! Yeah, and then eventually they go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, dropped it. 0. So they start managing risk and reward. And all we do is however many passes you have is the points you get. And if you score a goal, you get those points. You drop the ball? No. You don't hit the goal? No. You hit the crossbar, you get 5 times the points. So now there you are. You're like, we're at 12. Am I going to go for the crossbar? And then they miss. And look, it's video game points. No one cares. No one is richer or poorer for it. But the kids go nuts. And they're like, Coach, I hit the crossbar. Oh, wow, that's well done. And you just, and you've done nothing other than to teach them how to square up, move. The stick's going to be in the right spot. You hear the funniest conversations. They're like, Chris, can you do me a favor? Hold your stick up when I make a pass. Don't drop it again. And you're like, it's taken me 3 years to get that point across, but my players are now the most technical focused guys in that activity. They're like, all right, guys, we're doing this. Make sure the stick's up and out. And, kind of when you shoot, the toe goes where the shot goes. Otherwise, we're not getting the points. And I'm like, honestly, this is the bribe that you needed. Virtual points in a virtual game that no one ever writes down.
Well, I think that and all the comments about the word fun, I think that is a nice way just to sort of wrap this up today, because I don't know about you, but I only started playing lacrosse because it was fun. And I still play lacrosse and coach lacrosse and referee lacrosse because it's fun. So so much good material shared now this morning about getting some structure, but also getting everything we need in a training course. And we didn't go through all of Henning's slides. These will be shared with the video later on this morning. But you'll see there's in the second half of Henning's presentation, there are some more example drills, things you can try. And at the back end, there's an example practice plan, which for many of you will be like kind of teaching how to suck eggs. But it's always good to look at other people's plans, to see ideas, see things how you can structure it, and gets that key point about getting that education and that transition of people coming up through the club to be the next generation of coaches, because that is so important that we pass all this knowledge on to the younger generation coming up. So
there's 2 more things from my end. One is there is a set of links on the slide after the last one that we used. It's labeled, I think, resources. There are 3 free coaching courses from World Lacrosse you can take online during the lockdown. All of them are worthwhile. A lot of us have looked at this, yeah. So, and there's something around kind of using Instagram for inspiration, and obviously joining some sort of for some sort of other content. The second bit is Anna Pedersen from the ELF and myself. We've run the better part of I think 6 online 8-hour-long coaching workshops to kind of help developing nations or clubs to kind of go more into detail into this. If you want one for your club, if you want one for your environment, we would have to kind of position that with the ELA not to offend anyone in Manchester. But in principle, these courses are free to take, and they're we're funded by World Lacrosse to roll them out. So if you want to have a more in-depth conversation and kind of online facilitated course, there is lots of interactive stuff. So this isn't you sitting in front of a screen. This is you basically doing 90% of the work, and we call it an online workshop, but it's all about kind of how you structure practice, and we could really tailor it to SEMLA. So as and when you want to do that, Anna and I am pretty sure we'll be quite happy to help. And we can then do something like that. For the polls, we're doing that over 3 nights of 2 hours apiece. and then we'll see what we can do. But every resource that we have at Luxembourg Lacrosse is open to be shared by anyone. So let us know. We're going to host a 6v6 tournament at some point in 2022. And it seems we have a beer company as a sponsor. Just saying.
Oh, that's a winner out there. Brilliant. Henning, thank you very much for everything you've contributed today. Really good stuff. I'm going to certainly have lots to digest over the next few weeks before we get back out onto the field. Thank you for those who have joined and contributed. For those who are watching later on this afternoon, once you've got out of your own beds, I hope you enjoyed it. Henning, we'll put contact details, but most of you know how to get hold of Henning. You're on all social media platforms, aren't you, Henning? So you can get hold of him. You know how to get hold of me, and I can pass messages on. And we will do this again, probably before we get back on the field, because this lockdown's going to take a while. So the call will go out. Anyone else who has things to share, please let me know. You can be the keynote speaker next time. We will always invite Henning and anyone else from anywhere around the world. Welcome to throw back your hat in the ring and help us grow this wonderful game. So we'll close it there. Thank you very much. And we'll see you.
Thank you so much for your time. See you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.